This worksheet contains a detailed database of thousands of customer transactions. In the first row, I have added column headings to classify the information contained in each column. I also planned the worksheet so that the first two columns are heading columns to make it easier to identify each row. The problem now is that as I scroll down, the heading row is no longer visible, and as I scroll to the right, I no longer see the heading columns. Without the heading rows and columns, the information may not make any sense as I browse through the worksheet. For example, how can I know what the data in row 17495, column S, refers to? In Excel, I can freeze heading rows and columns to make sure that they stay visible when I scroll in the worksheet. On the View tab, in the Window group, I click Freeze Panes. Then I click Freeze Top Row. Now as I scroll down, the top row stays in place, so I can quickly identify the information in any column. I immediately see, for example, that the numbers in column S refer to the order quantity of a purchase, no matter where I am in the worksheet. If I want to see identifying information for each row, I click Freeze Panes, and then click Freeze First Column. As I scroll to the right, the first column stays in place, so I can identify the information in each row. For example, I can see that the information in row 17495 refers to order number 17494. This line separates the frozen panes from the panes that scroll. When I froze the first column by clicking Freeze First Column, the top row became unfrozen. Notice what happens when I click Freeze Top Row. With these commands, I can freeze either the top row or the first column, but not both. However, with a worksheet that has as much detail as this one, I need to be able to freeze both. Here's how I do it. First, I determine which rows and columns to freeze by selecting one cell. When I click Freeze Panes, everything above and to the left of that cell will stay in place when I scroll in the worksheet. In this worksheet, I want to freeze the row above row 2 and the column to the left of column B. So I select cell B2. I click Freeze Panes, and then click Freeze Panes. Notice that there are two separation lines. When I scroll down, all of the data in the top row remains frozen, and the data in the first column scrolls. When I scroll right, all of the data in the first column remains frozen, and the data in the top row scrolls. But no matter where I am in the worksheet, I can see the top row and the first column. Freezing and unfreezing panes changes how I can view the data without affecting the data itself. I can click Unfreeze Panes if I want the top row and first column to scroll again with the rest of the worksheet. After I modify my worksheet by adding color and more heading rows, I change which panes are frozen by selecting C4 and then clicking Freeze Panes. Now the three heading rows above C4 and the two columns to the left of C4 are frozen. Here are some things to look out for when using Freeze Panes. You cannot freeze or unfreeze panes while you are in cell editing mode, or if the worksheet is protected. Freezing panes is also not supported in Page Layout view. And because it is not possible to freeze rows or columns above or to the left of cell A1, Excel freezes the panes near the center of the workspace if this cell is selected. Before you click Freeze Panes, remember to select the cell immediately below and to the right of the rows and columns that you want to freeze. Finally, if you're looking for information about changing or printing column or row headings, Freeze Panes is not related to those tasks. Instead, see the links in the article associated with this demo. Freeze Panes is very useful. I use it often because it helps to know exactly what data I'm looking at in a large and complex worksheet.